A bloke who served this country, who is now earning money for his family. Barnaby, you're talking that job down and those dollars for his family
You have
down.
just mentioned one worker. You talk about thousands.
We're talking about 40,000 jobs.
Where are they, mate?
I just told you.
Where?
They're at Clark Creek. They're at Dubbo. They're in the Central West. They're in the Southwest. They're in Northwest Victoria.
So which is the renewable town, the intermittent town, where they're all working, where all these new factories are, this grand nirvana of greenness? Which town is that?
Okay, we're going to move on because there's a couple of things I really want to get to. Let's talk about decommissioning, which is what happens in 20 years, 30 years, when a turbine or a solar farm comes offline. What happens?
Well, you do not get a project approved unless you have a watertight decommissioning.
And what is that? What is
That's
the plan?
rubbish. That's
Hang on. I want to know this. What is it?
It's part of the planning process. You do not get a project approved unless you have a watertight decommissioning plan. We have been building wind turbines
I don't want to
in this country
Chris, answer
since
that question.
1998.
How much? What's the details? Who pays? Is it the farmer or is it the company?
No, the companies pay. And
No, they don't. No, they don't, Chris. Get across your facts. Murray Watt, the Labor in the Senate, has clearly stated this. It's the responsibility of the farmer and to be worked out in their agreement with the proponent.
And there is not an agreement. There is not an agreement that has been struck. There is not an agreement that has been struck anywhere in this country that saddles the farmer with.
Well, then why doesn't if you're saying the truth and you're not across your facts, why doesn't the government underwrite your truth and say if this all falls over, the government's responsible for pulling them down?
Well, they ask the government. I'm just telling you exactly what's happening now.
So hang on. You're saying this is watertight.
We have been building.
Watertight. Barnaby, hang on. Explain this to me. To recycle, you don't recycle them, but to get rid of a turbine, how much does it cost? Roughly?
Okay, this is from Andrew Dyer, the Labor Party Ombudsman, and from figures about 2 years ago. A structurally sound one, $600,000. Structural imperfections, up to $1.6 million. That means we'll have farms with negative equity, and guess what will happen, ladies and gentlemen? Just like overseas, they'll just stand till they fall over.
Hi, perhaps you recognize me. It's your favorite president.
We will decide who comes to this country and the circumstances in which they come.
Anybody in this country doesn't minimise their tax. They want their heads ring.
Socialists don't like ordinary people choosing, or they might not choose socialism.
The answer is might, because I want to do you slowly. I was saved by God to make America great again.
We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender.
G'day everyone, welcome back to another episode of Commanding the Narrative. My name is Stephen Tripp. Thank you to everyone who is watching this. If you are watching this live on Facebook, Rumble or YouTube, you can contribute to today's conversation in the chat. Or you can hit that StreamYard link if you're very brave and you can call in and ask a question, have your say. We want to hear from you. The best episodes are when we hear from our audience, so please don't be shy and jump on those opportunities. So let's kick it off like we always do, and that's by letting you guys know how you can follow us. And the best way to do it is by heading to commandingthenarrative.com. If you want to see previous episodes, it's all up there at commandingthenarrative.com. You can hit the sign up button in the top right hand corner and you'll get a regular newsletter with all our podcasts and articles and everything that's going on. Obviously, the website's got all that stuff as well. It's got these two surveys as well that I want to point out to you. Firstly, the feedback survey. We want to hear about your thoughts about the show and what you'd like to see and maybe guests that you'd like to have on. But this one here, the Shaping the Future of Australia National Survey, please check that one out. I've partnered with Sasha McNaughton of Let's Rethink Renewables and also Deborah Yule of Australia's for Australia to do that survey. We're hosting it on Command the Narrative, so please head to the website and fill in that survey. We're getting some really great feedback on the survey. And if you want to know who's coming up on the podcast this week, it's all up on the website. And also this any events coming up, just like this one here, the Let's Rethink Renewables Forum. It's coming up in 2 weeks' time. So don't be shy about getting your tickets. Jump on there now and grab your tickets. It's a week before CPAC, which we'll be talking about today as well. So if you want to head up to the Gold Coast and Brisbane and have a week up there like I'm going to be doing, it's a great opportunity to get away with the family or whatever it might be, have a holiday in between. Hit our event first on Sunday, September 14th between 2 and 5 p.m. at the CSI Club Southport. And then you can maybe There's other events through the week that I know of, and then CPAC will be the weekend after. So we've got Ben Beattie of the Baseload podcast, Senator Malcolm Roberts, and also Colin Boyce, the member for Flynn. He's going to be speaking along with Katie McCallum, Glenda Pickersgill, and also I'll be up there as well. So it's all up on the website, commandthenarrative.com. And also while you're there, hit the donate button at the top. And if you want to contribute to us, it helps to pay for the website, helps to pay for the streaming services, and also, most importantly, gives me a very warm and fuzzy feeling inside, which is always helpful. So the other thing I want to let you know about is Australians for Better Government. Please head to that website, australiansforbetter.com. Check out everything that we're doing at Australians for Better, and also sign up to be a member. We've got some exciting news coming up. We've just announced tickets for our next event in Adelaide. It's going to be on October 26th, which is a Sunday in Adelaide. For some reason, my computer's frozen, but that's okay. There we go. Sorry, we've got to rely on technology sometimes, unfortunately. So it's Sunday, October 26th, at 2 p.m. start at the Sporting Car Club of South Australia. We've already got Dr. Christopher Reynolds lined up for that one. I'll be there as well, and we'll hopefully be announcing more speakers as the weeks go on. So please head to the website, and we'll be promoting that shortly, or in the next few weeks at least. But today, speaking of big events, there's no bigger event in Australia on the conservative side of politics than CPAC Australia. And today we're going to be speaking to the founder and director of CPAC Australia, Andrew Cooper. It's a pleasure to have him on. Let's welcome him on. Andrew, welcome to Commanding the Narrative.
Thank you, Stephen. Thanks for having me.
No, thanks for coming on, mate. Well, we're all getting excited about CPAC. You're announcing more and more speakers all the time. It's always a big event. It's almost like the biggest event of the year for our side of politics. But before we get to CPAC, maybe let's go back before CPAC. Like, what's your background and what led you up to getting involved?
Oh, that's a good question. Look, I've been a businessman most of my life. I've owned businesses and from car washes to video stores. Started a software company with my brother, and we were the largest e-commerce company in Australia for a long time. But, through that journey of being in business, you get incredibly frustrated with government involvement, slowing things down, clogging up the wheels of commerce. And when I eventually sort of sold out of all that, I wondered what I should do with my life. And I sort of came to this conclusion that instead of just complaining around the barbecue and dinner tables of my friends, I should actually try and do something. And when I looked around, I didn't really think there was one great gathering point for conservatives of all sorts of colours and creeds. So, and then I looked further and I thought, well, I could start something. But in the US, there is this great gathering called CPAC, which started almost 50 years ago, the keynote speaker back then being Ronald Reagan. And I liked the ethos of CPAC. I liked the fact that they were unashamedly conservative and proud of the philosophy and beliefs that they held. And I thought that's what we'd need in Australia. So I flew to the US in 2018 and somehow convinced them to let me borrow the brand and open up the first CPAC here in Australia in 2019. So that's the backstory. It's not overly exciting, but that's how we started.
But why did you think it was so important to do something like that here in this country? Obviously, CPAC's a big thing in America, but why do we need it here in Australia?
Look, I think I don't know whether anyone's been to a Liberal Party function or event, or you go through any of the parties, right? Honestly, they're pretty boring, right? And they're pretty locked down. They're pretty controlled, and there are reasons for that. I accept that. That's fine. But there's none of that. There's none of that kind of celebration at those sort of events. And I really felt that we need to celebrate what we believe in, because you know what, it's worth celebrating. And I just I didn't really know how it was going to go. Do Australians warm to this kind of expression or this, cultural outpouring? And I knew I was onto something, Stephen, when at the first CPAC in Sydney in 2019, I had two separate people come up to me and explain to me how where they come from, there was the suffocating sort of groupthink, political correctness. Now we'd call it wokeness, right? And how at at the dinner parties that I complained about, they felt they were shut down even by their friends. There were topics that they couldn't discuss. And both of those people ended up having tears in their eyes and hugging me. And I thought, oh my goodness, like it's so important. And maybe it's a little bit less suffocating at the moment, or maybe it is, but certainly back in the late, 2018, 2019, it was, there were just topics that you couldn't discuss. Free speech was being culturally shut down. And now there's a battle, right? There's a battle about free speech, and it's still being shut down, but at least we have an outlet now where we can invite people to talk about these issues, and they can't shut us down. And I tell you what, they did try to shut us down in 2019. A few weeks before CPAC, there were speeches in Parliament by Christina Keneally complaining that CPAC should be banned because it's an American import. Anthony Albanese, then the opposition leader, spoke out against CPAC. Penny Wong spoke out against CPAC. Miles, Dreyfus, they all made these speeches against CPAC. And I'm thinking, holy crap, we're onto something. They fear us. So we hadn't even held a conference at that stage. So, I felt vindicated after the first one. We had protesters, we had Antifa and all those crazy left-wing kind of groups, protesting in the streets of Sydney, shutting down one of the main streets in Sydney. A little bit of violence, a little bit of carry-on going on there. And afterwards I thought, oh my goodness, all I wanted to do was hold a conference. And it said to me, all this nonsense, that this just vindicated the fact that I think we were needed. We are needed.
Well, I definitely think it's needed. I mean, I've been to CPAC in Sydney previously a few times actually, and to think that now we have that platform, that big stage, all the lights on everyone, and we can really promote good, conservative views and also personalities. It's incredibly important. I mean, it's really the biggest event for any conservative in Australia now. So, from your kickoff in 2019, it's not a long time. What's your ultimate, goals and vision for CPAC going into the future?
Look, I think, I'm very grateful that in your opinion, that is how you perceive CPAC, because that was our goal, was to be the great sort of, annual gathering. And notwithstanding the fact that there's lots of events that go on around the country, including, the one that you're involved in a couple of weeks' time. And so our role is not to compete with any of those, it's to bring people together. So the IPA, Advance Australia, many of the think tanks have or are sponsoring and being involved officially with us. And we see our role as to, be a bit of an umbrella organisation for different ideas on the conservative side of politics to be discussed. And, not everyone agrees with every person that gets up on stage. We've had people getting booed at CPAC because, the narrative or the manner in which they're trying to put their point across just isn't accepted. But I think that's great. I think that shows that there is a forum there where debate happens, and we can flesh it all out. And the other thing that's important with these events, as you well know, is that it's the social interactions where people from different states and even different countries get together and they discuss what their plans are, how they're dealing with issues. For example, I'll give you an example. Ted O'Brien, the now deputy opposition leader, but 2 years ago was the shadow environment minister, or shadow climate, whatever it is, minister now. He observed at CPAC, and we put him in touch with one of our speakers, a pro-nuclear speaker, ex-Democrat out of the US called Michael Schellenberger. And Ted credits that meeting with Schellenberger as giving him a lot of ideas about how to prosecute the pro-nuclear argument. And a year later, Ted was on stage announcing that, the coalition was going to remove the ban on nuclear. So, without that meeting with Schellenberger, who knows where Ted and the coalition would have landed on that issue. But we feel that that's our place, right? That's our place, to get people together and discuss these ideas and then go off and put those plans or those thoughts into action.
I was at one of those CPACs where, one of the Liberal panels got booed, but I think that's important. I think that, that's part of the process, part of the honesty of getting people up there to express their views. It's not always going to translate with the audience, and that's feedback for those people on the stage as well. I mean, they might have thoughts in their head, and then they go and present it to the audience, and then the audience comes back. Either they support them or they boo them, and that's just part of the event, right?
Yeah, it is. I mean, in the main, we only invite speakers that we think are a great fit for our audience, and we see ourselves as kind of like the keeper of conservative values. We're not a political party. We don't have to read the polls and see what people are thinking and then adjust our positions to match those. Stuff that. We are the keeper of the values, and we'll promote ideas that are a great fit with conservative values, and that on the economic side, but also on the cultural side as well. So, sometimes politicians try to promote ideas that 20 years ago might have been considered towards the left. It's a pretty fair chance that if you try to do that at CPAC, you'll get some strong feedback, and that's happened on a couple of occasions. But it hasn't happened a lot.
Yeah. No, but I think it's a good part of the process. Now, I mean, I've hosted a whole bunch of smaller events, nothing like CPAC. I know the challenges that come along with hosting an event. Little things can go wrong, and suddenly your day's thrown into chaos. What are some of the challenges that you've faced since setting up CPAC in your whole journey there?
Oh, there's the minutiae, the volume of little detail for a large conference is sometimes overwhelming. One of the biggest problems we have, though, is the cancellation of importing, bringing overseas speakers. Last year, Kelly J. Keane, a housewife out of England who's famous for being at that demonstration in Melbourne with Moira Deeming, the member of the upper house in Melbourne as well, and those soy boy so-called Nazis came in, snuck in behind them and did a Nazi salute. And I understand it wasn't nothing to do with what Moira and Kelly J. Keane were talking about, which is really essentially what is a woman. And most of us know this, right? The thought that we have to discuss what is a woman in this day and age is just really unbelievable. But we wanted to bring her back last year, and she couldn't get a visa. And we've had a number of speakers that either don't get visas or have visas delayed for months, so they can't get on their flight. Nigel Farage, 2-3 years ago, we had him. He's a member of Parliament. We had him now. He was a member of the European Parliament back then. We had his visa approved after many, many months of being in the system. We had his visa approved on the day he was due to fly out, and he was at the airport. And finally, we ping in the message, your visa's approved, get on the plane. So it's this is the kind of nonsense that the Immigration Department play with us Conservatives. Meanwhile, on the left side of politics, anyone advocating for hardcore socialism, communism, they're fine to get in. They're fine. So that's one of the biggest challenges. Like, we've got a couple of speakers at the moment that are waiting on visas, and we're 3 weeks out, and we don't know whether they're going to be on stage yet. But what can you do? We know what the game is, but there's no way you can even contact the Immigration Department. It's just a law of its own. And
they do it a lot too. It's really, it's disappointing. But, one of the other things that I guess people overlook as well is, since you started in 2019, a lot of those years were COVID years, and you couldn't get people from overseas as well. Was that a big struggle for you as well?
Yeah, it was a struggle, actually. Look, it wasn't a struggle in the sense that that we couldn't put a conference on that people love coming to. But what I love about bringing in people from the US and the UK, we've had our Japanese friends over a couple of times. We've got our friends from Hungary coming this time, and from other countries as well, from New Zealand, is I love the injection of ideas that they bring. Now, we don't have to agree with those. Each country has its different way of looking at things, but I love having those overseas speakers at the conference because they do inject ideas that otherwise wouldn't be sort of percolating. They wouldn't be in the air. And through the COVID years, obviously, there was really only one topic during the COVID years, and that was the economics of the COVID response and also the morality of the lockdowns that were being perpetrated across the country. So, every country was struggling with that. It was interesting in the US. My US friends, all they saw was the Victorian lockdowns, as harsh and ridiculous as they were, and they thought that was across the country. And whilst our lockdowns were, probably by global standards, particularly harsh, there were states in the US that had the same sort of conditions. And I have to, the ruin that Victorian Dan Andrews did to Australia's reputation, to me, is still being counted. It was only 2 years ago I was having a conversation with some Americans at CPAC in the US, and I remember this one guy said to me, and I won't try his accent, but he said to me, I used to think you guys were all Crocodile Dundee. Now I think you're just grandmothers hiding under the bed. How do you answer that, Stephen? That's how they see us now.
It's pretty terrible, isn't it? But I guess, I mean, since you set up CPAC, it's also provided you with a lot of opportunities to be able to go around the world and speak at other CPACs. I mean, you said, I've heard you talk about Australia being the first one set up, and now there's others in other countries. So you've led the way in, I guess, expanding CPAC from just an American event. But what are some of the opportunities that have come your way? Being able to go to other countries and speaking to, some of the conservatives, in America and elsewhere.
Yeah, no, I've been very fortunate to speak at Hungary, CPAC Japan, CPAC US a number of times. Big stage there, 10,000 people in the room. Warren Mundine, my fellow director, and I were on stage earlier in February. And that's great, right? But one of the things we're doing now is we've set up the CPAC Global Explorers program, where we have donors that donate to send students typically under 25, to go and attend these events with us. In February, we had nearly 45 Australians join us on that trip, and it was just fantastic. And we have and the CPAC now culminates with a big party of Australians and Americans. And unfortunately, there's so many, it's 12,000 people at CPAC. I can't invite everyone, but that's the hot ticket now, right? Because the Aussies are in town. The Americans all love to attend, and the people you'll see at that party is special, the kind of thing that ordinary people, even in America, can't get access to. Some of the people that turn up at this party, but Australians, young Australians, going to the US because of CPAC Australia and because of that relationship we have, are getting to meet people that, quite frankly, are just mind blowing in their status and where they sit, across a number of topics, from congressmen to, all sorts of people from all over the world. So I love that. And again, that just comes down to that interaction that's possible when you have these sort of large events. And then we're fortunate to be involved in a organisation that's growing now across the world. Each CPAC is independently owned and controlled, as we are. We're a non-profit organisation, and Warren and I are the directors, but we're a member-controlled organisation. So there's no shareholders, there's no profits to be distributed. Warren and I are volunteers in this organisation, and most of the CPACs around the world are set up similarly. So, it's great. I love going to other countries and seeing what the challenges are there. I mean, Japan, the word conservatism wasn't even around 20 years ago. Now there's a growing conservative movement in Japan. And, I've been privileged to sort of be on the journey with my Japanese colleagues, and it's really exciting to see what they're doing.
And what do you see as being, I guess, your biggest accomplishment so far? I mean, you're still in the early stages. I mean, 6 years is not a lot of time. I mean, I suppose when it's 20 years looking back, you're going to, you really see the fruits of your labour. But right now, how do you feel? What do you see as your biggest achievement?
That's a good question. I don't see CPAC as being at the vanguard. We're pretty involved in the Voice campaign, obviously through Warren, and Jacinta Price, who, has been on her way to stardom from a very long time ago. But we were one of the first to put her on stage. She was a town councillor on Alice Springs, and CPAC in 2019 put her on stage, and she was on her way anyway. But I think we just kicked that along a little bit better, a little bit quicker. And I think we see some of our role is to find those solid conservatives in the political sphere and give them a little bit of a push along, if you like, a little bit more of a platform. Voice campaign was really important for the country, but we felt we got a great sense of achievement, in terms of our involvement in that. There were many organisations involved in that, and I think the fact that all those organisations all came together and stayed on message and campaigned almost as one, I think was fantastic. It is interesting, like, what is the mission? Our mission, we've been discussing this internally over the last sort of year or so, and we think our mission is really to take back conservative values, and we think that it's lost its true meaning at the moment. Take this whole net zero nonsense, right? So, whether you believe in climate change or you don't believe in climate change is almost irrelevant. Conservatives shouldn't believe in socialising sort of the economy in order to meet a government-mandated target. This is socialism, and that should offend every true conservative. It doesn't seemingly offend all conservatives or people that call themselves conservative, and it should. And so our role is to, we're pushing against this net zero. Matt Canavan, who's a great advocate for getting rid of these silly targets, as is many others. We've been pushing that narrative now for probably 3 or 4 years, and I think it's a dead duck. I think this is gone, yep. And we should be energy agnostic. We should be allowing nuclear, and we shouldn't be subsidising one form of energy over another. And it's worse than that, of course. It's not subsidising coal. It's actually putting up barriers to stop, gas and coal and other, technologies to compete with the renewables. So I'm pretty proud of that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, it's the people we put on stage, they're the ones, and the attendees that come to the conference, they're the ones that now have to go off and do the heavy lifting. Our job is really to bring people together and get them collaborating and talking. And one thing I love, so I'm rambling on a little bit, Stephen, so please excuse me. Go for it. Yeah. But I'm thinking as I'm talking, the other thing that I love is that I have people from different parties, on stage, and we only have one rule at CPAC, and that is don't attack each other, because it's far too important to keep our eyes and our minds focused on the real target and not squabble amongst ourselves. And I love the fact that, Pauline Hanson and Tony Abbott and the Libertarians and others will get on stage, in 3 weeks' time. And they won't attack each other, and I'll see them talking to each other and discussing ideas and how they can collaborate afterwards at the social events. And I'm really proud of that, to be perfectly honest, that we are, filling that role of bringing people together and cooperating.
Well, that's a good segue to my next question, because we know how fragile some of these political personalities are. And you're having to deal with them and get them on stage and organise for them to be, at certain places at certain times. And I'm sure some of them are saying, I want to go on last, I want to do this, I want to do that. Do you have any interesting stories? I mean, you might not be able to name names, but do you have any interesting stories of the interactions that you've had with some of the speakers over the years?
Yeah, I won't name names, because particularly the politicians, I don't know too many politicians that that entered politics without good intentions. I think the job is a horrible job. So I cut our political class a fair bit of slack these days, far more than I used to, because I see the kind of life they lead. It's endless. It's relentless, right? So I do cut them a fair bit of slack. It's a hard life being a politician. And once you join, if you go into the parliament with one of the main parties, you got to slog it out being a yes man or woman for a long time before you have any real influence. So it is difficult. So I'm very grateful for the job they do. But you do get some that get a little full of themselves. And, last year I just had an MP who wasn't happy with his position, kind of within the conference. Just pulled out 2 days beforehand without really telling me. It was just we happened to find out. So you just get that sort of stuff that goes on. And, of course, we will never invite that person back because, no one's getting rich out of this, right? You know what it's like running events. It's impossible to make a profit, so you rely on donors. You rely on sweat equity like Warren and I and others do to get these things running. And we don't need to put up with that sort of nonsense. But most of the time they're pretty good. I'll tell you one funny story. The first CPAC, we have the gala dinner, and there's a lot of attention goes into the seating. And at that CPAC, we had Judge Janine Pirro. I don't know whether you know Judge Janine, but she's a little ball of compressed energy from New York. She's got the great accent. She's on TV. She's got that fantastic show. She's got the 6-inch stilettos, and she's just, she's a powerful woman in a small package. And I just remember we'd spent all this time curating the table, so everyone had a nice speaker on their table and whatnot. And Janine comes in and she points at Tony Abbott and Warren Mundine and Mark Meadows, the later chief of staff of Trump. And she pointed at all these people and said, all right, you're all on my table. And we've all just looked at each other and gone, oh, my God. So all our best laid plans, weeks of planning just go out the window because Judge Janine, who no one is game to say no to.
That's the sort of stuff that you have to deal with when there's unforeseen things that come up and you just have to react to them at the time.
Yeah, that's right. And I don't know her well, but I know enough to know that she would laugh at this story as well.
Yeah, very good. Now, you're going over to America for the big CPAC, and obviously we've seen a big transition in America with the rise of Donald Trump. A lot of people over there, I guess they feel more emboldened to speak out and to express their views. Have you seen that transition in America, and do you see that coming here in Australia in any way? Do you think we hold back too much here?
I was fortunate to be invited to Mar-a-Lago a few days after the election, and because of my CPAC connections, and I never had that feeling ever before being there at Trump's place, and Elon was there, and RFK's there, and they're all there. Bannon was there. They're all there. And it just felt like that there was this sweeping change about to happen. That change was in the air, and it was a global thing. The Secret Service are everywhere. I was told there were, missile launches nearby to stop planes flying into the building. You just felt it was a really special time. And then at CPAC in the US, when Trump came on stage, it was incredible. Right, the energy. When Elon turned up and President Milei of Argentina handed over the chainsaw to Elon Musk, who was heading up Doge, I've never felt or seen anything like that. It was almost surreal. But the reality of politics has hit the Republican administration, I think, fair square in the nose. And, I think it'd be fair to say that Doge didn't quite achieve what it was set out to achieve, and I think there are probably other struggles that administration's having. But at the end of the day, could you imagine the US under a Kamala Harris presidency? It would just be horrific, right? So, I look at, I'm not a big, I think conservatives should still believe that global trade is a good thing. I'm not a big tariffs man. That's my personal opinion. We'll have people at CPAC that will think otherwise. So it's not a dictate of mine. That's just my personal opinion. So I think, but I fully support the right of Americans to do what they think is their own best interests. And I would trust the Republican administration under Trump far more than I'd trust the Democrats, who to me are just a sideshow now. They're just a crazy sideshow.
But what we're seeing in America and also the UK with Nigel Farage is, conservative movements being built on the back of strong leadership.
Yeah.
We're almost crying out for something similar here in this country. I mean, do you see a path forward with that? Do you think that we do have that type of leadership in this country? I know our systems are different, so maybe that's a part of it. But, I think when we go back to John Howard, he was a strong leader, and he love him or hate him, he led the country the way that he felt was best. I mean, we're really crying out for that here, I feel.
Yeah, I think it's a different system, Stephen. I'm not sure whether you agree with me or not, but I think compulsory voting makes it different, and the parliamentary system that we have makes it different. I think so. I don't know whether we will ever get a Nigel Farage here. The UK is a bit different. It's not compulsory voting, right? So he mobilises people that haven't voted before, who have felt marginalised. Here, we're all forced to vote. So the contest is around, the few swinging voters that are forced to turn up, and that's in the middle. So the contest is around the middle. Whereas in electorates like the US and the UK, the contest is a part of the contest is just getting people out to vote. So you'll find that they go to the edges rather than the middle. So I think there's a different political system there. I also think, in Australia,
I think we may have lost him there. Oh, are you there?
I'm here. Yep.
Oh, you dropped out for a second there.
Okay, I was just saying, sorry about that. I was just saying, I think there's a yearning for a principled leader, not so much the charismatic leader. Of course, we all love charismatic leaders, right? But Howard was a principled leader, a principled politician. And even people who disagreed with Howard, they do say, well, at least we knew where he stood. And I think there's a lack of principle across most of the party spectrum. So I think not only is the right open to, a charismatic, principled politician in a way, but also as the left. Like I really think that, and you see that in the voting patterns. The main party's share of vote is dropping. They're down in the low 30s now, both of them, and the independents as a rump are the same size. And if that trend continues, then there is a possibility that a significant party, and perhaps it's One Nation, maybe one we haven't heard of yet, but I think there is a possibility on the right that One Nation is probably the most likely, that they can take a Greens-like position within the parliament and exert particularly, a fair bit of influence over the coalition. But at the end of the day, it's a Liberal-led coalition. I think that's the only hope to end this nonsense with Albanese.
Do you think or Conservatives or people on the right in this country have enough courage to be able to talk about what they believe in? Do you think there's enough of that? Or does it go back to what you said about you have to fight for the centre, so they almost have to hold back in a way to be able to get ahead?
It's interesting. Look, this occupies our time a fair bit, doesn't it? Why do our politicians seem so reluctant to express what all of us are thinking?
Yeah.
So they're fighting over the centre, but I think it's worse than that. If you look at, say, the Liberal Party, so I'm a Queenslander, the LNP in Queensland, the average age is nearly 70, right, of the average member. So the membership that votes in, does the pre-selections and votes any of our parliamentarians to, run races on our behalf, it's a very old, staid kind of conservative, and I use that term conservative in the sort of safety first, mindset. I really do think that the parties themselves, and I'm not so much concerned by the Nats, it's more the Liberal Party. I think their membership base is getting far and way out of touch with the average Australian. And I think as they get more and more out of touch, those Australians that represent the centre or represent the core Conservatives, they're bleeding out of the party and joining other parties. And so this means that the Liberal Party in particular is becoming more and more part of the problem. And it's just a shame because at the end of the day, that's the strongest Conservative brand, and it will represent in the minds of most, conservatism or classical liberalism, if you want to, refer to its name more accurately. And I just don't see how that's going to change too much unless the grassroots is rebuilt and fresh blood comes in. But then, of course, it's sometimes difficult to get into the party. There are
or stay in the party.
Or stay in the party. That's right. So you step out of line, and those that are currently controlling it, why would they want people in the party, that think differently. So there's some significant challenges, I think, for the Liberals in particular.
No, I think you're exactly right, because I've spent time in both One Nation and the Liberal Party. And when I was in One Nation, you'd go to events and there'd be a lot of well-meaning, good people, but a lot of them, let's just face it, were in their 60s or older. And then when I was in the Liberal Party, it seemed even older than that. I mean, they seemed to be 70s, 80s and older than as well. So one of the things I noticed when I go to a lot of events around, whether it be CPAC or other events as well, there's a lot of grey hair people there. Are you concerned with that? I mean, that there isn't enough youth involved in politics? Do we need to reach out to them in some way?
Yeah, it's like I am concerned, and we have, we'll have like 50 volunteers all under about 25, right? So it's a good number of kids, and we take a bunch to the US. We're trying to do what we can, but look, how engaged were you in politics when you were 20? Like, I had my mind was probably more on getting a job, finding a girlfriend, and drinking a lot of beer. And, maybe that's the job of a 20-year-old to do that rather than be too engaged in politics. Look, of course, I also think the under 30s are far and away voting left, probably like the under 21s did, when we were back in the day, and I'm probably much older than you. But I think adulthood is not coming as quickly as it used to come. People are living at home longer. Everyone's studying at university. The days of, people getting a trade job at 18 and buying a house at 20 or whatever and becoming an adult at that age is like they're gone, right? Everyone is kind of still within the, the family system, the university system to a far, later age. So I think that maturity that comes, from the idealism of university, days to the reality of paying bills, I think that's coming later and later. And so, it may just be we have to accept that, Labor have found themselves a strong constituency by virtue of the fact that, they're making it so difficult for them to get out of home.
No, that's true, but it's still a problem too, because you said before, I mean, it's a compulsory voting system, so these kids out there, they still vote. So there has to be some way of being able to reach out to them. I understand you had a youth competition. Was it last year where you opened the door to a competition where you can win it and take people to the American CPAC? You want to explain?
Yeah, so that's called the Global. That's the Global Explorers program. So what we do is we open up a certain number of spots. It'll be about a dozen spots this year, where young Australians can pitch. Last year we had some pitches on stage, but this year we're just going to do it via video conference. But they'll pitch and explain why they're deserving, and they are the right conservative young person to go to the US. And we just let them pitch, right? We let them pitch who they are, why they're the right person to go, and we make a selection. Now, typically the donors we have supporting this, they expand their offerings once they see all the great, there are a lot of incredibly talented and inspiring young people around, and we put a few on stage last year. And I've got to tell you, that's one of the best sessions that we had in terms of our feedback. I always remember 2 years ago we took a 17-year-old from Sydney to CPAC in the US, and we were at this event, and there was a lot of congressmen and women around, some serious people in that room. And I remember looking across the room and seeing Camilla talking to a congressman and engaging with him, so animatedly and demonstratively. And then I saw her pull out the business card that she said, and she gave it to the congressman, and he gave her business card. And I thought, my God, but that's what we need. We need more people we need more Camillas in the world. We need more people like her to get involved in our politics. They're the one that are going to save the future for us. And I think they're there. But as I said before, I think they're being held back a little bit by the realities of just getting out of the family home and becoming adults.
It brings up a point. I know some of the guys that went across to America on that program of yours, and one of the things they brought back and said was the way that they were, I guess, approached and accepted by the American crowd, specifically the donors and people that wanted to build them up and support them and get behind them. They said it was a completely different dynamic than it is here in Australia. Do you think that's a problem as well, that we kind of have that tall poppy syndrome here in this country? No one really wants to build anyone up. Or I mean, it seems to be more of an American thing, I feel.
Yeah, look, it is definitely cultural differences, aren't there? There definitely are. There's much more of a generosity of spirit amongst Americans. I think they're more used to just giving to people that are less fortunate, whereas in Australia we rely on a social welfare system to do the heavy lifting for us. So perhaps we feel we don't need to do that because, taxpayers are doing it. I don't know whether that's the answer or not, but that's the only thing I can sort of come up with. When I look at our own donors, the donors that help us run our organisation are typically entrepreneurs that have made a fair bit of money, and probably a little bit like I was when I started CPAC, just frustrated with the way the country's going and wanting to do something. It'd just be great to get more people, feeling that way and making an impact by sending more and more young kids. Like I want to send 100 over, not a dozen. But it's an expensive exercise, with flights and accommodation and all the other things that go on. It's kind of expensive. So, we're going to build that program, and one day we will have 100 going over, and that'll be impactful, right? Those 100 people will take that experience and do something with it.
Yeah. Now, speaking of CPAC itself, it is coming up very, very soon on September the 20th and 21st in Brisbane. So tell us a little bit about the event itself, and what are you excited about this year's CPAC?
Look, it's a pretty strong lineup this year at CPAC. So we'll be opening, and we haven't announced this yet. So you and your audience are the first people to hear this. But Tony Abbott will be opening the conference after an introduction from our Warren Mundine. Ted O'Brien, we've got former PM of the UK, Liz Truss, is visiting us again, and she came last year. She loved it. She's coming back. And then we've got, to me, the heart and soul of conservatives at the moment, Matt Canavan, who is developing himself into sort of if it's any such thing as a political cult hero, I think he's sort of, he's developing that sort of, that kind of reputation. Alex Anditch, there's just, I can't even remember all the others. We've got quite a few people coming from overseas. So, I'm really excited to see 1,200 people enjoying that, and then, talking to each other. And, I feel, after a CPAC, I feel so energized. I just feel like, that I want to do something. I've got to do something. And I do hope that the other attendees and the other people involved in CPAC feel the same thing. It's growing, so it feels like it's on a bit of a roll, and I'm just really excited about about finally getting that first speaker on stage on September 20.
What are some of the ticket packages that people can get for CPAC?
Yeah, so it's a full day event. Tickets are available for $119. But they do go up to, full food and gala dinner and after parties and whatnot. So they're about $700. It's 2 days and 2 big social events. So about half the tickets we sell are those. And then we have some, other more extreme ticket pricing for those that really want to sort of get into, meet the speakers. And look, the way I look at people who buy those tickets, they're donors, right? And they're the ones that, subsidise the rest of it. It's a break-even proposition, so we do what we can to keep the costs down, and we haven't put the tickets up for the standard tickets for 3, possibly 4 years now, which we're proud of. But it's a tough thing, and if you bring people in overseas and you pay for their airfares, most of them donate their time. They don't ask for anything. Even that though is quite an expensive exercise. So we hope to see as many people as possible there. But, for a full day of conferencing for $120, I think it's pretty good value.
And you mentioned earlier as well, like one of the things that's so great about CPAC is not just listening to the speakers, but the networking opportunities as well. You get to meet a lot of people from a broad range of parties or movements or whatever it might be as well. So it's incredibly important that people come along and just purely just for that networking side of things as well.
Yeah, and like if I hark back to that little anecdote I spoke about at 2019, where those two people said, they felt like they'd been suffocated. What they were saying to me was that I come here and I know I'm not alone. There are 1,000 other people that think just like me, that are happy to hear a conversation before they start telling me how stupid I am or how wrong I am, So I think that feeling is almost priceless, to be perfectly honest, because I know that's the case for some people because of the tears that I saw and have seen in people that have felt that feeling for a long time, first time in a long time by coming to CPAC.
Look, mate, I'm excited to be there. The whole Australians for Better Government committee is coming up. We've got the gold tickets, so hopefully we're looking forward to the gala dinner and the whole conference and everything that comes along with it. So it's going to be a great weekend. And if people want to buy tickets, you just head to CPAC.network. Is that the best place to go for tickets?
Best place to go. It is.
Yep. Well, it should be a great event, and thank you for organising it, for founding it in the first place. Because, as I said in the beginning, I think it is an important opportunity for conservative voices to have a platform, and also the networking opportunities that come along with it as well. So we really appreciate what you're doing.
No, I appreciate it, Stephen, and let me say, I also appreciate what you're doing. You're putting a lot of sweat equity into what you're doing, and it's important, right? We're all going to work together. Because we can see where, you can see the writing on the wall if we don't. So congratulations to you and the audience that's listening, and I look forward to catching up with you at CPAC.
No, mate, thank you. As long as the technology's working, we can get by. But, mate, most important part of the show, it's the final segment. It's called Build. I'm going to put you on the spot now. It's called Build Your Own Fantasy Government. Now, Andrew, you're going to be in control of the next Parliament of Australia, and you can choose 5 or 6 people to head up that next government of Australia. They don't have to be politicians. They can be alive or dead. They don't even have to be Australians, but just your view on leadership and people that can take this country in the right direction. Who do you choose?
I would choose to head up a very slimmed down Parliament of Australia. I'd choose President Milei of Argentina. We'd go and pinch him. Mm-hmm. I'd support him with Prime Minister. We'd resurrect her from the grave, Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, working in tandem with former President Ronald Reagan. And then I'd pick 5 random people by ballot off the street, and that would be our government. That would be our government. That's all we need.
You got a real libertarian streak in you, don't you?
I confession time. I was a former president of the Liberal Democrats many years ago. So I do consider myself a very classical liberal small government guy. But, that's not CPAC's, that's part of CPAC's, audience, but not the only part.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much for coming on. We are looking forward to the event, and as I said, everyone get your tickets. It really is. If you haven't been before, it is a tremendous way to get to know other people and meet them and network, and also hear some great speeches as well. And just head to CPAC.network and you'll get your tickets there. And while you're at it, head to commandthenarrative.com and follow us as well. And it's been a great pleasure speaking to you today, Andrew. And hopefully we can speak to you again at some point.
Wonderful. Thanks, Stephen. See you then.
All right. See you, everyone. Thank you.